Hello, all, and welcome to AANMC's January webinar. Welcome to 2025. My name is Dr. Joanne Yanez. I'm the Executive Director for the association, and we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping here before we get started. Thank you all for joining us today for our talk on career changers. New year, maybe new career. So what we're going to be talking about is how do you go from doing one thing and then switching gears and going and doing another thing and maybe even your calling or passion. And so with that, Dr. Jones, can you go to the next slide, please? If you run into any issues or have any questions, please feel free, as always, to email us at info@aanmc.org. With that, next slide. I am really excited to have Dr. Jones with us today. He's going to be sharing his journey and how he got to where he is now in a thriving practice and with probably more extracurricular things than most folks could track. So I will let you do some of these introductions, but I'm really, really thrilled to have you with us and for you to share your journey. And at the end, we will be taking some questions. So with that, I'm going to make my face go away here and welcome Dr. Jones. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Doc. I appreciate that. And I want to just let you guys know how grateful I am for this opportunity to speak to you guys because number one, making that transition, for me as a military, it really doesn't matter what walk of life it is. It's not easy. It's such a huge gear shift. It's not like you're like, hey, I'm doing this job and I'm gonna make a lateral transfer to something very similar. It's really just hitting the reset button on your life and your career. And so I'm really honored to have this opportunity to speak to you guys about it. So about me, the gray hair is real, man. So I got a long story here, but I will keep it very efficient on that. But I'll start with undergrad here. So I went to the University of Illinois, Chicago, as I like to affectionately call it, the Harvard of the Midwest, even though I think I'm the only one that calls it that. But I'm gonna own that. My degree is in biomedical engineering, and then I went to Sonoran, used to be SCNM with the name change. Now it's Sonoran University of Health Sciences. I had a great experience there. We'll talk about that when we get to that point. Some extra things here. I just started my term on the ANP, that is our National Organization for Naturopathic Physicians, on the board of directors. I Science Advisory Board for New BioAge, which is a great, looking at some more innovative and longevity medicine kind of modalities, and BioAccelerator, which is a stem cell company who is looking to do more regenerative medicine here in the States. And I also, in my free time, additional free time, I actually helped start a supplement company, and we're looking to do some innovative things as well. So that's a little bit of the extra stuff. Besides, and I should have put that I guess the number one thing is I own my own practice here in Phoenix, Arizona, called Innovative Wellness Center. There'll be some links to that here at the end. And so we are just entering our third year since I've been out on my own, and it's a great experience, and it is a challenge to say the least. But we're not there yet. Let's get you guys to the point where it's like thinking about going to school and starting your journey. All right. So disclosure, this is all the fine print, if you will. The more presentations you get to, the more you'll see this is a thing. No medical advice here. There's no continuing education credits for those who are at that position. I have no paid conflicts to disclose. And there's some other things here, the ANMC fine print. You can read that as you get the presentation. And so today we're going to talk about my journey, how I got from point A to point B to point C in many ways, why I think the path of becoming a naturopathic physician and practicing this medicine is one of the most amazing things, the most fulfilling things you can do. Let's talk about leveraging your skills and and I talked about it's not a lateral transfer, but there's so many things that you can bring from your existing career and your existing experience that you can bring to this program, this career that's going to only benefit you and the patients you're going to see. Let's talk about making the leap. Like, how do you prepare for this? It's scary, but it's not impossible. And complete the mission. I want to make sure you guys have that motivation, that finish what you start. We'll talk about those challenges, but man, once you get there, it's gonna be that light in that tunnel is very dim, but it gets brighter and brighter as you get closer to graduation. So for my journey, again, we're not going to start from in the beginning, but When I was 17 years old, I joined the Navy. I was in a position where I was in athletics. I was a relatively smart kid, but I kind of went on the wayward path. And I kind of had that ultimatum from my mother that was like, look, if you don't go to college and if you don't do something, you need to find a place to live. And I was like, well, I'm going to go live in the Navy. And so I joined the Navy at 17, literally a month after I turned 17. I didn't realize how much of a baby I was. And I was fortunate enough to be in the nuclear engineering field in the Navy. I scored well on their entrance tests. And I did the submarine thing, and it was great. And I did that for a few years. And then someone, and this is so great. I'm sure in all you guys' path, there's someone who's like, hey, they see something in you. And our executive officer, who's like the number two guy on the submarine, is like, hey, you should go be an officer. You should go to college. Not even something I thought about doing. I was like, look, I just want to do my time, get out, move on with my life. He just kept at me to the point where I'm like, look, man, like if I do this application, will you stop asking me? And he's like, I will. And I did the application, got accepted to an officer program. One of the best things I've ever done. I'm for eternally grateful to this guy. Paul Vachon, man, I need to look him up, see what he's up to these days. And, I went to the officer training program, went to college. That's where the University of Illinois Chicago thing came in, graduated, went back to active duty, and then minus a few years here, 20 years later, I retired. And then I got to corporate America, and that was scary. Like, not as scary as going to med school, but it was like, wait a minute, I'm so used to the structure of being in the military and just that very regimented, you know where you are, you know what you're going to do, to like, hey, you got to get a job now. And now you got to pick what you wear every day because you're not wearing the same uniforms all the time, right? And corporate America was good. I had a great position. I was with Honeywell Aerospace. I was in quality engineering. I got to travel. I got to meet some great people. I got to learn more about what that world was, but it wasn't for me. It just wasn't. I felt stuck. I felt like I'm doing something, but what is my purpose here? I'm going to work and I'm going to these meetings and just lack of fulfillment. And on top of that, some of those things from the military, just being, just some of the more arduous and more physical labor things, and it's a lot of sitting, and it's a lot of now you go from sitting to having to be super active, and just all these things had just really, when you're in the middle of it, you don't think about it. But as I got a little older, it's like, wait, I'm in pain. My back hurts. My knee hurts. This is not normal. And then there was the stress of, for me, when I was in the military, I know I was stressed. I just never had time to acknowledge it because you have to go, you have a mission, you have people to take care of. I just never accepted that I'm under stress. And now I get to this corporate job and I'm like, wait a minute, what's this weird feeling I have? What's this tightness in my chest? Am I under stress? Am I anxious? Like, I don't know what this is. And I just felt like I was in this hamster wheel, get up, go to work, go home. And it wasn't for me. And so I actually thought I was going to go to pharmacy school. And so it just, more backstory here and put on the slide. My mother actually died of cancer and she just did not get answers. It was like, here's chemotherapy, here's radiation, here's these medications here, but it wasn't, she never got the, hey, maybe you should eat better. Maybe you should look at doing something natural. And so eventually, I didn't even know naturopathic medicine was a thing or there were options. I would tell her, like, hey, let's do this vegan diet. I just did not know. And I didn't have anyone to guide me. And so I'm thinking pharmacy was the answer. Like there has to be a better drug. There has to be something that could have saved her and other people's parents that went through this. And so I started going on the path of learning to go be a pharmacist. So I started taking the classes I did not take in undergrad in hopes of going to pharmacy school. And then I had a friend from undergrad who went to SCNM at the time, and she's like, "Hey, come to my sister's graduation." I go, and when I talk about that light bulb moment, it's like a moment in canon, right? It's that origin story. I'm sitting in the audience and I'm watching these people graduate, and they're talking about naturopathic medicine and what it is and what it means and how impactful it is. And it's like I got tunnel vision. I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is the only thing I want to do. And I just went in. I'm going to talk about that and some of my journey and some of the things to do to prepare for that. And I started just stalking the school. It's like SCNM time. I'm showing up. They're like, "Oh, I got this thing going on. I want to go to that. I want to be a part of it. I want to make sure this is the right decision." And that was it for me. And so now here we are, a few years later, and it's, man, one of the best decisions I've ever made. But it did not go without challenge. So that journey in pictures, there is a very young version of me. Oh, look at that young guy. Oh, so young. And then there is my military retirement. The next picture is my white coat ceremony, which is halfway through the program when you actually enter clinic. And last but not least, far right, that's graduation. Me and Dr. Justin Wise, we were co-speakers at graduation. So from sitting in the audience, watching my friend, sister graduate, give the commencement address as a student, to me being a student speaker, man, you're talking about full circle. And it was just a great moment there. So one thing I want to talk to you guys about is my journey was military. That was my past career, but there's so many other skills. But what I want you to think about is that you are changing careers, but your skills are still there. And so many of those skills that you learn from your previous career are going to translate and they're going to help you. For me, the military, it was like, how do we solve problems? It's like, if I know I got to go from point A to point B, how do I get there? When should I be there? What should I watch out for? So I just had that structure of how do you solve problems. I had a lot of discipline. It's the military, man. It's like, look, if I know I have to study from this time to this time, I'm studying from this time to this time. Don't disturb me. I got to do it. And just being resilient. And I think that, yes, we learned that in the military, but that's not the only career that gives you that. Life should give you that. It's just knowing that it's not going to be easy. If it's easy, it sounds cliche. If it's easy, everyone would do it. But you have to have that resilience to know there's going to be bad days and you got to be able to overcome those. And working as a team. And that was a little difficult for me. I was big time teamwork in the military. I went to this job in aerospace, not a lot of teamwork. Now I go to med school. I'm like, I got to work in groups again. But teamwork, man, cliche time again. Teamwork makes the dream work, man. You're going to have study groups, you're going to have study partners, and they're going to make you get in group projects. You got to learn to work together. But from the military, it's like, hey, work as a team. Here's my responsibility. Here's yours. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's make it happen. And then from engineering, just understanding that the body's an interconnected system. From engineering, for me, it's like there is no action without a reaction. If I do something, something else is going to happen. It's going to have an effect, whether it be good or bad. I need to know what, as an engineer, is like when I connect that circuit, what is going to happen in other circuits that are attached to that. Body's the same way. If I give you a medica supplement, if you take a medication, I need to know how is it affecting the body overall. And so for me, that's my tool of things. And there's so many other things, but that's not the only thing, man. If you come from education, you know how to communicate, you know how to break things down, you know how to talk to kids. And sometimes you're talking to patients, you have to sometimes break it down as if it was a kid in front of you, because a lot of times it's like a kid, man. They don't eat their vegetables. They just don't. It's like, hey, you need to stop eating this. You got to cut out the chips. You got to be able to talk to that almost that younger self in them and be like, hey, here's the reasons why I need you to do this, right? And how do you break that down to them? For people that were in healthcare, man, they were so lucky, man. Some of the nurses and people, we had people coming from dental school and they were actual dentists. Like, hey, they understood some of the physiology already. They knew the anatomy, just a head start, but also patient care, knowing how to be in that clinical environment and how to be empathetic to patients and understand what they're going through and what their family's going through. Some of that experience is invaluable. And we learned that once you're on the other side, but some people came in with it, and that's really cool. They did that. Business professionals, man, like, coming in and actually knowing business, because that's the thing. There are business courses in school, but experience is the best teacher with that. So for a lot of us, when we got out of school starting practices, man, it has been a series of errors to improve. Folks came in already knowing business. They had a plan. They had a business plan second year in school and starting a practice. And I was like, man, I'm just trying to graduate. I don't know anything about that just yet. It's great if you have that strategic plan and thinking process already and how to run a business and start a business. And then not just in those technical fields, people who come from the art world, it's like they know how to innovate and be empathetic and actually look at things uniquely and differently and using that creative side. And of course, even if you're not coming from a career, if you're just a caregiver, taking care of parents, taking care of kids, knowing that emotional intelligence and actually knowing how to nurture and build trust and rapport with patients, those are skills that if you have that, great, but you'll learn it. You have to learn it because it's part of the gig. And so let's talk a little bit about naturopathic medicine and just how unique it is and how, to me, it is so important. Number one, it's just an approach beyond reproach, man. We look at the whole person and not just the symptoms. How many times have you sat in front of a physician, your primary care, and it's just like we're treating the symptoms? It's like, I have a headache. Take this for that headache. Why do I have a headache? Rare you get asked that, right? I have diarrhea, I have constipation. Are they looking at your microbiome or are they just giving you something to treat that? That's what we do. We look at the reason why, because I can give you a Band-Aid. Who doesn't like a cool little Band-Aid with some cartoons on it? But how do I stop this from recurring, from happening again? And we look at the whole story. It's like reading a book. I want to look at the whole book. I need to know you as a whole person, not just that chapter in front of you, not just where you are in your life. Because, okay, I've got knee pain, I've got back pain. That's the chapter you are right now. Was there something in the past? Is there something affecting you emotionally and mentally? And is there inflammation going on? I need to know that whole book so I can actually get you better. And then we like to get, and this goes back to part one, we like to get to the root cause. We have to get to the root cause. If not, you take the supplement, we don't fix it. When you stop taking that supplement, you stop doing that treatment therapy, it's coming right back. So why don't we get to the root cause of it and just make it more of a long-term solution for you? And so some people say the whole, out with the old, in with the new. I don't think in with the old, in with the new, because some of our modalities have been around for decades and sometimes centuries, and they still work. But medicine evolves. Naturopathic medicine evolves. So how do we integrate some of the old things with the new things? How do we stay on top of the latest innovations, the latest developments, and use those foundational skills you're going to learn in school and bring those together? Because that's how you truly shine. Like using the new things and making like, hey, I know my foundation. I know I got to work on your diet. I know I have to work on your lifestyle. I know there's supplements, there's homeopathy, there's botanical medicines, but there's so many cool things out there that we can integrate into our practices. And that's where people really like that. And they do great looking at both sides of the coin. So do not, it's easy to say, hey, this is old school naturopathic medicine. I love naturopathy, but also look at some of the newer things and newer advancements too. Teach and learn. So it's not just me sitting in front of you like, hey, I'm a doctor. I know this. You must obey my word. I went to school. You didn't. Partner with your patients. They're smart. They wouldn't be in front of you if they hadn't done some homework beforehand. They know their condition. They know their body. They know their story. Listen to them. Partner with them. It's a team. It's like because again, you can't be with them 24/7. I can't say take the supplement at this time. Sometimes they're not going to do it, or they may miss it because hey, the kids had something going on or had this going on. But it's like they're going to educate you as well, like, hey, you told me to take it this way, this is why I couldn't do it. And you want to listen to that and also learn from their experience as well, because yes, you can look at this is what we learn in the books. And sometimes that patient is not going to is not going to respond the way we saw it in class. And being able to be flexible and say, let's have a collaborative care model. Let's work together to get you where you are. Because there is no greater education than that patient in front of you, because that's where learning is. Because there's so many things. It's like, oh, this is what I'm expecting to happen, and it doesn't. And now you got to figure it out. And they're going to help you figure that thing out. And last but not least, man, you're the solution. You're the future here. So you want to, when you get to that position, when you're in school, when you come up, there's so many people, they're going to be like, hey, I'm a naturopathic doctor. And they're gonna be like, it's getting better. But when I first came out of school a few years ago, a lot of people literally did not know what we did and what naturopathic medicine is and what does a naturopathic doctor even do? And they think it's all crunchy munchy and fruits and berries, man. And we're a little bit more than that, right? You have to educate people that we go to a medical school and we take all these classes and we do clinic and we know all these things. Sometimes you have to be an educator to people that don't know. And that demand is growing. And to me, that demand is not going to stop growing on who's looking for that whole person. Listen to the patients. I'll never forget that one of the breaking points for me, I was in front of my PCP. I hurt my back. It was the first time I had a back injury. I had really bad sciatica, and it's like my right leg had turned off. I literally could not stand on my tiptoes. I could not do it. And I'm sitting in front of the guy, and I'm like, "Hey, I have this nerve pain. My right leg feels off." And I was like, "See, look, I can't stand on my tiptoes." The guy didn't even look up at me. Like, are you what? And those are going to be the people. They're going to see that and be like, you know what, there's got to be something better than this. I need to work with somebody who's going to listen to me, who's going to pay attention to what's going on with me. You're that person. You are going to be that person. And so just think about this, like they're looking for you. But then once you get there, how are they going to find you? Right? It's okay to be brilliant, but you also want to let people know, like if you have to do social media, you've got to go talk in front of people, do group events. They have to be able to find you, because it's not like you're going to plant the flag, build a website. It's not field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. You have to let them know you're there. And so just be outgoing with your knowledge and understand that you have to create a presence for yourself. It doesn't happen overnight, but do not be afraid to speak on what you love and your passion once you get to that point. Doing pretty good on time. So where do we go from here? You guys need to start thinking about preparing for the journey, because again, it is not going to be easy and it is a rough road, but it's a road that can be conquered. Number one, figure out where you want to go. There's a lot of resources, but there's We've got Washington State and we've got Oregon and we got California, we got Phoenix. So look at the location where you are right now. It's like, hey, I live in Phoenix already. This is easy. There's Sonoran right there. If I live in San Diego, Bastyr is right there. But what if you live in Kansas? You're right in the middle. What school is going to be best for you? And then you need to start looking at the curriculum because if you have an interest in something, just knowing that some schools, depending on the state that they're in, may not teach all the modalities. So you want to look at that and say, hey, I want to learn this. They don't teach it at this school. Let me look at a different path. Look at the curriculum. And then also, there's a program which I did it twice. I did it in California and also did it in Arizona, Student for a Day, where prospective students get to go and literally be, hence the very well named Student for a Day. You get to go to class and actually sit in class, a couple classes and go to the clinic and just get an idea of that school and the energy there and the vibe there. I know it seems kind of wait, the vibe, you want to feel that. Is it going to speak to you? Is this a place that you feel your soul, your spirit wants you to be? Is it the right place? So take advantage of those resources and those opportunities if you can to go and learn about the school. And this is big because you're going to get challenged. And there's going to be moments where you're like, hey, is this what I really want to do? Think about your reason, your motivation to go to school and change your life and become a doctor. Think about that, reassess it, assess it again, because you're about to make this huge leap where you're about to potentially quit your job and move to a new city and move to a new state. And like I can't press upon you more, like you're hitting the reset button, know your motivation. Because that motivation, those moments when you're challenged, when you've got seven finals, eight finals, and projects due, and all this is happening in 5 days, and you're tired and you're sleepy and you're frustrated. And if you don't anchor yourself to your motivations, it's very easy to say, I don't know if I want to do this. And then your performance stuff, and you can get bitter because now you're 2 or 3 years in and it's like, what am I doing? You don't want to get disillusioned. So never lose sight of why you're doing it, whether it's personal, family, wanting to do something to improve society. Think about your motivation and what it is for you. For me, it's because I know what my mother went through. I know what I went through. I wanted to make a difference. I am but one person. I know, like, yes, I want to change the world, but I can change my environment around me and use that as a propellant to help change the world in many ways. So always anchor to the reason you're doing it because that's what's going to get you through those dark days. And why am I doing this? And why do I want to do this? Setting goals because again for many of you if you already have a career and you want to make that change, when are you going to stop working, when are you going to start school, how long is this program because there are 4 year tracks and 5 year tracks, how much time do I need to graduate? So and then it's like have a plan in place because to me I worked until for me I was like look, I want to stop working, I'm not going to make any money. I worked all the way to the Friday before I started class. I was like, look, I'm already here. I'm not moving. Give me 2 days. I'm ready for class, right? Some people need more time. And depending on what you're doing, you may want to take some time for yourself. Go on a little mini vacation. Go ski the Alps or something crazy cool like that. But think about what makes sense for you and have a timeline so you can have that vision for yourself and prepare for that. Speaking of preparation, being financially prepared because it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap. Only getting more expensive. And so thinking about like, hey, I am going to not work for a little bit. How am I going to support myself, support my family? Be if I need to make a financial contribution to my family, how do I do that? Learn about financial aid, learn about scholarship opportunities, and they're out there. A little bit of work. You may have to write some papers, you may have to write some presentations, you may have to do some community service, but it can help you out because again, the programs are not they're not cheap but the education is worth it. And for those of you who are coming from the military, man, the GI Bill was a lifesaver. Oh my gosh, man. Like just having that, and it's way better now than it was when I first started with the GI Bill. It can carry you and prevent you from having to look at taking out student loans, which are an option. And if you have to do it, you have to do it because again, the world is not inexpensive, school's not inexpensive, and you want to make sure you have what you need to take care of yourself and take care of your family. So if you have to look at loans, you have to look at loans, man. I mean, because of undergrad and grad school, I didn't have my full GI Bill. I had enough for 2 years. The last 2 years, I had to figure it out, man. I had to take out some loans. And next thing you know, I'm driving my car around town as an Uber driver, which is a brutal experience, by the way, for your sleep. But you have to do what you have to do. So look at the things that for finances and how to prepare yourself. Look at your finances. Thankfully, I had a little bit of 401k. I had some things in savings. It wasn't as bad, but it can get rough financially, and you have to make some sacrifices. So just prepare yourself for that. Start building your support network, especially for those of you that have kids. It's like, hey, I'm about to go to class. I need to study on the weekends. What am I going to do for childcare? Who am I gonna talk to on those days when it's just like, man, I am so stressed out. You need to have an ear and just building that network. Like you got, even if you have a dog, man, it's like, who's gonna watch the dog if I'm studying all weekend, right? All those good things. Who's gonna take the dog out? So having a support network, whether it's family, friends, all these great things are going to be so essential for you when the times get rough. And then connect with your school. And this is usually after you get accepted, you're there. And now for me, once I got accepted to SCNM or Sonoran as it is now known, I was very much like, okay, I went to career services coordinator at the school, like, hey, look, I got some time here. I want to connect with some alumni, connect with some doctors and learn. For me, it was like this. I had three questions. One, I want to shadow someone who is that brilliant doctor who is all on the science end of it. I want to connect with someone who is extremely successful in the business end of it. And then I would like to talk to someone that's right in the middle. If you have someone, and then you reach out. And if they have the opportunity, they have room to let you shadow. And again, you don't have to be there every day. I mean, I shadowed for like 4 hours one day in one clinic and then 2 hours in another, but just to get an idea of it because you are making a huge decision with your life and you want to know a little bit what's out there for you. And I want that motivation. It's like, hey, let me shadow someone who's out here crushing it in the business side of it because it's not like it's not like, okay, I'm going to go be a neurosurgeon and I'm going to go here and they're going to give me some $300,000 job. You have to find a way to make that happen for yourself in many ways. So let me meet someone who's doing great at it, pick up some advice. I'm all about picking people's brains and getting mentors and all that. So connect with that. The school may have opportunities for you. And there may be some other things like for me, it was just the going to clinics, but also there were some doctors who were like, hey, hosting a group of students to come just talk about this life on the other side and running a practice and wherever I can get in with that, I wanted to do it because I wanted to know more. That's just the way my character is. And then there's professional organizations that are also great for mentoring and networking. So there's ANMC, they're hosting this event here. So that's our Association of Naturopathic Medical Schools. And then there is NMSA, which is Naturopathic Medical Student Association. So learn about them. You may not be able to join them right away. Some of them will wait until you're a student, but learn about what they do and learn about the opportunities they present. And there's webinars like this and networking opportunities, and there's conferences. So getting to know our medicine, knowing our programs, knowing our people is going to be beneficial for you in the long run. And then take advantage of online resources. There's so many webinars out there. AMC is always doing great things. If you can get connected with NMSA and ANP just to learn more because that knowledge is powerful and learning more because again, you're about to make this big leap of faith and this big journey. The more knowledge you're going to equip yourself with, the better you're going to do as you go forward. And there's podcasts. Just to learn more about the medicine, like I have a podcast. So many doctors, so many of my colleagues have podcasts where you can learn about what they're doing and just get a different viewpoint on things. And the knowledge is out there. And obviously, some of the things you learn in the podcast it may not be exactly applicable to day one as a student, but learning more about what interests you. Because for me, because of my family history, when I first started school, I was all about I want to be a naturopathic oncologist. So I was dead set on that. And then I get to school, it's like, oh, wait, I like cardiology. And it's like, oh, I want to do cardiology. And I started kind of shifting towards that. And then I ended up, for me, a lot of my postgraduate education, what really spoke to me, because again, I re-injured myself in school. It was like I was able to see some of the doctors and get some injection therapies and learn about pain relief, not pain management, actually getting out of pain. And then my focus shifted and stayed towards pain. And that's where I was. So I had to flex to that. I didn't even know there was something back then. There weren't that many podcasts. I wish there were because then I could actually learn more about what's out there on the other side. But again, this goes back to, and I'm going to talk more about this in a future slide about being flexible and understanding like what you may be walking into, what you think may not be what you do when you come out of it. Be open-minded and don't let yourself get discouraged. If you have to change, you change, and that's okay. You have time to do that. So take advantage of the resources that are available to us out there because there are plenty. And so now the challenge of it, and you got to go into it head on and without fear, without hesitation, because you're making, again, I keep saying making the leap, you are making a leap. Do not be afraid of the unknown. It's uncertain. Like you're going back to school. And for some of us out there, for me, I graduated from undergrad in 2001. I went back to school in 2015. I hadn't been a student for 14 years. I'm like, oh, this is uncertain. I got to sit in class. Can I do this? What's this all about? But again, never forget your passion, your why, and what your goals are. So run into the uncertainty of it. It's unknown. It's just a big old fog there and what medical school is. If you didn't go to dental school or go to a traditional medical program, you need to know like, hey, this is a challenge and what you're getting yourself into, and just be okay with that. Jump into the void, as I like to say. And then again, going back to that financial planning and just budgeting as you can for living expenses, knowing what you need for yourself and for your family, and knowing like where, because again, you gotta have you gotta have some DPI, some disposable income, so you can actually enjoy your life a little bit and save, but know that hey, it's expensive, but it doesn't mean you gotta live like a pauper, if you will. In some ways you do. But think about what you want to do and what you need and explore scholarships. Again, there are scholarship opportunities. And then there are part-time work opportunities at the schools. You can look at being a teaching assistant. There's stores at the schools. There's plenty of opportunities to actually make a little side hustle, if you will, while you're in school and learn, especially if you do like a TA kind of thing, to learn while you're there. There's supplement companies that have student reps. There's a little bit of income there. There's a lot of opportunities out there, a little extra change to do some cool things and be able to take a trip on your breaks and things like that. So keep that in mind. And then those logistical challenges for those of you that have to move. Think about the process of moving, not an inexpensive thing. Think about where you want to live at in relation to the school. Never too soon to think about, hey, I want to go to Sonoran. What's the average cost of rent around the school within 5, 10 miles of it, so you can get an idea of what you can afford to do. And think about, especially for those of you that have families, you're gonna have to balance that. Your kids still need mommy and daddy, and you gotta go to school, you gotta study, and making sure you can balance that because you still got to take care of your little ones and they still need you, even though you need to go to school. Just know there has to be a balance and make sure you can set that time aside as you need to. And there's community commitments. What if you're very active in your church, you're very active in community organizations, making sure that you can make time for those things because they bring balance to your life, they bring joy to your life. And it's just you want to have a little bit of that work-life balance or school-work balance as we go through this, and just getting a plan of how you balance that. And that may change. There are going to be some quarters like, oh, I only have 6 classes. Oh, sort of a breeze. There's going to be quarters where it's like, oh my God, I have 11 classes. Like I have zero time for anything, but you also have to make sure you balance all these things out. Super important. And stay motivated. Again, celebrate those small victories, man. No matter how you got to do it. Like, oh my God, this is the best score I got in this. Oh, like it's like, oh, biochem, never fun. Like, oh, sucks. I got a great score on this exam. I did great on my rotation. Make sure you celebrate those small victories. However, whatever makes you happy. Like, oh, I did great on this test. I'm gonna go on a hike. I did great on this test. Like, man, I really like a healthy gluten-free burger. You want to be able to celebrate that and just, man, those tough times, again, those support networks, because I like to say that it's just like anything else, man. The further away you get from something, less painful it feels. But I do recall that, man, there are times where it is like, oh my God, I cannot do this. I have, it's not embarrassing to say it's the truth. There were days I drove home from school. I was like, dude, I was in it. It's like I'm replaying my life. I was an engineer. I was a naval officer. I had a house. I had this. I had a BMW. I am crying in my car, like, what have I done? This is so crazy. I can't believe I did this. And then you have to go back to knowing why you're doing it and having those support networks and to make a phone call, shoot a text like, hey, you got a moment, and just even though you don't have to unload. Because most people, when you talk to them about the challenges of med school, if they're not a doctor or they didn't go through something like this, they're not going to understand why you are studying 8 hours on a weekend. And a lot of people may not understand that journey, but sometimes you don't have to talk about the journey. You can just talk about something that's just not even part of that, man. Just life in general, just being able to detach for a little bit. And actually, if you do have issues, having people you can talk to about that and help you talk through it and be supportive of the journey because your people, your family, your good friends, man, they know they may not understand the journey in detail, but they know you're going through something to better yourself. And a true friend will be there to lean on when those times are needed. So make sure you celebrate those small victories because they're there. There's big ones, white coat ceremony, graduation, things like that, entering clinic. But the small ones, I want you to make sure you celebrate that and appreciate that. And then again, that adaptability, that persistence is so key to navigating because oh man, the little setback got blocked by the icon there, but navigate the setback. See, there's a setback right there. I'm gonna navigate that. So again, being persistent and learning how to adapt and just say, hey, there's gonna be some easy weeks, gonna be some challenging weeks, but understanding that one, you have to get up. You're gonna get knocked down. Get up, keep going. Just know that it eventually is going to end. You are going to graduate. There is such a bright light on the other side, but you got to get through it. And then, oh, by the way, you graduate, then you got to study for boards. And it's like, oh my God, that's enough. It's not graduation and rest on your laurels. You still have to pass an exam, a very tough exam to become a physician and actually to see patients, right? But again, you just have to be persistent and keep going and don't give up and adapt. And just like I said, how I thought I was oncology, cardiology, pain relief, regenerative injections, just knowing that you may have to adapt and find out this thing that I thought I wanted to do is not the thing I want to do, but here's something that I really love, and to make that change and be flexible with that too. I really want to implore that, because it's so easy to say, oh, I want to do this, I can't do it, but I still want to do this. Find the thing that you love, find that passion, and keep going. And so your next chapter is there and it awaits you. So the big picture here, embrace this opportunity. Like, to me, med school was tough. It wasn't easy. Man, it's like I'm kind of reliving some of those moments right now. It was tough, man. But you know what? Once you get on the other side and you start practicing and you start making that impact in your patients' lives and their family's life, when you start seeing patients and next thing you know, the wife is there or the husband is there and then the kids are there and their parents are there and their coworkers are there, they want to refer everyone they know to you because you're changing their life. That Talking about a tear of joy, man. It's like, I don't know, crying in front of the patients, but it just makes you so happy. You're like, wow, I'm making a difference. When someone shoots you a message and says, hey, like, I feel so great. You've changed my life. I mean, it's not going to happen to every patient, but you're going to have those again, I celebrate those small victories when you know that person is better, their lives are better, they feel better. That's so fulfilling, man. You make that impact. And then you get to educate. You get to hop on your social media and on your Instagram and talk about, you don't have to give away the farm and talk about all the things, but hey, just a little bit like, hey, did you know this? And educating people in their own small way. Do not give medical advice on social media. Prepare for that because people are going to ask you. But just being able to make an impact on a day-to-day basis and a patient by patient basis is incredible. And then taking that first step. Start your research. Think about where you want to go. Think about what interests you. Think about the location. Think about the logistics of it. Set the goal. When do I want to start? When is it realistic for me to start? When do I want to graduate? Do I have time to do a 5-year program if you have to do take care of other obligations to get there? And reach out for support. There's thousands of doctors out there, and some of us do have time. Like for me, man, I ain't got a whole lot of time, but again, I'm always there to be encouraging because this journey is tough. And I'm here to tell you, man, life's good. Life is and it's getting better, but it's not an easy thing to do to get there and find your lane and find the thing that you're passionate about, finding your niche within your niche, the thing that, hey, I'm really good at this. I love doing this. People are interested in this, and I want to learn more about it. I want to get more education on it. And once you get there, it's such a good feeling to make that difference, man. I'm telling you, it can be great, but you have to stick to it because I didn't really go through the postgraduate side of it, man. When I first got out of school, oh, so tough because I didn't do a residency. I was like, I'm gonna go work, and I was literally like this vagabond doctor. I was like, I'm working here, working in 4 or 5 different places, not really making a lot of money. It was a struggle, but I still had that persistence. I knew that there was a way. I knew I was gonna get there. I just had to figure out how. And for me, I made my leap, opened a practice, and it's been great ever since. And now I employ 2 other doctors. I have a staff. I have all these things. I'm extremely busy because of that, but the fact that I know that I'm actually helping people grow their careers as well is just super amazing. So make sure you get there and just be part of this growing community. Like, again, it's people are going to keep looking for what we do, and I feel like it's only going to grow, and people are going to look for you. Make sure they can find you and make sure you have something to offer them when it comes to, hey, I can educate you on this and I can help you get better with this and I can help you look at this a different way than your traditional doctor or specialist has been looking at it. Make sure that you can be a part of the movement to help redefine healthcare. And for those of you that make this journey and start it, again, you wouldn't be there if you weren't supposed to be there. So when you're there, own it. You are going to be a future doctor, man. Own it and be a part of the movement. And that's the best I can tell you, man. Is like this is a great life. So
We've had a few people ask if you take preceptors and have any students. So here is Dr. Jones's contact information here regarding that. And then if we can go to the next slide. So AANMC has a few other webinars in the hopper here. We will be talking all about heart health and things that you can do proactively to make sure your heart stays as healthy for as long as possible. And then in March, we're going to be discussing career options and how that plays in the admissions process. And so those are our upcoming events in the near future. So one of the questions that came through, and I'll take this one as well, but you can take a first stab at it, is just about and this is an area we hear a lot of trepidation, especially from our career changers who've been out of school for 14 years or longer, of just making that transition. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit. I can as well. So James asked a question, just and what I would say, James, is connect with the schools because there are a lot of ways that you can, uh, you know, as far as your prerequisites, anytime somebody is asking me, how do I get started? My go-to is contact the schools. Don't do this, don't shoulder this all on your own. Don't muscle through it. I think as older people, we're used to just problem solving, putting our heads down and getting things done, and not always asking for help. And so the admissions counselors will be able to walk you through your transcripts, your life experience, all the things, and come up with an academic plan for you. And they will also be able to share what types of institutions they take credits from, community colleges. There are some accredited online programs. Like there are various different ways that you can get some of your prerequisites out of the way. But I would just take the guesswork out of that and start with the admissions counselors.
And then also, you made a good point there because, again, because I graduated in 2001. And so, and some of the schools, they have this length of time between graduation and accepting the credits. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to repeat undergrad, but I actually sat down with the academic counselors and said, hey, and a lot of it was like, oh, you've been an engineer and was able to, there's some, I won't call it wiggle room, but they'll be able to look at that and say, hey, this is great, but you do need to take this class. You do need to take these other classes instead of, don't just, again, blindly go into it like, oh my God, I have to repeat my entire undergraduate education. So have that conversation first because that was scary for me because I was like, oh God, I am not taking OChem again. And obviously have that conversation. So that's a good point.
One question that came in is, did you feel like you wanted to refresh yourself on any courses if there had been a while, even if it wasn't required?
Mm, I, for me, it had been so long since I took anatomy and physiology. I did some self-study. For me, that was easier, just kind of like look at read a couple books and all that stuff. And oh, what's that app? It was an app. It was like I forgot the name. It's an app where it's like you can look at the different systems in the body. You can like you push a button, it goes from the bone to the muscle to the tendons, ligaments, all that, which is kind of cool. I had to take a few prereqs. I think it was like some of the social studies, and I think I had to take like I had to take biochem or something like that as a prereq. But yeah, I feel like the thing about it is I would tell you with like the anatomy and physiology, it's fast paced. There's a lot of information, but they're not expecting you to show up day one and know every bone in the body. They're going to teach you that. So in many ways, if you feel like that's a great leg up to do, but also the education is very thorough, you are going to learn, and when I say you're going to learn every bone in the body, you are going to learn every bone in the body in extreme detail and what attaches to it and what nerve goes through it. You're going to learn all that. So don't feel like you got to walk in knowing all that. You are going to get taught in excruciatingly painful detail. So,
Um,
yeah.
so there's actually a question here from a
Mm,
vet, first thanking you for your service
yeah.
and asking about vets in the VA or MTF.
But I will tell you that with the VA, I would say at this point, we've been fighting this too, and hopefully you guys, when you do get to the other side here, you'll be involved with some of the political side of it and some of our action committees and with DC Fly, which is a federal legislative initiative, because that's something we've been working on for years is getting naturopathic medicine in the VA. And the more voices that can be heard that are veterans, I think we have a greater chance of getting that in there. Right now, you still will have access to the VA.
And just adding on, there are NDs working in the VA and working toward VA coverage. Right now, it's
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
either folks who have other degrees, but there are naturopathic doctors in veteran services and Indian health services as well. But those are areas where we are still in advocacy. There may be some
Mhm.
pilots here and there, or smaller, so it's not quite as widespread as we would like it to be, but we're working toward that.
Mhm.
Uh, and for those of you, and I'm seeing a few questions coming in here, so I'm just going to answer this in a blanket format. For those of you with prior careers, what if you have medical careers, healthcare careers, etc., and you're curious about transferring in or what prior life experience you may get credit for, the best way to do that is to contact the admissions counselors at the colleges and to be able to find out exactly what your background is going to look like in their curriculum because it is not the same across every school. So, if you are a pharmacist or a dentist or a chiropractor, uh, depending on the curriculum and course sequencing and things of that sort, in one program, it may be 2 or 3 years. In another program, it might be the full 4 based on their sequencing. So it's really best to contact all of the programs and understand what that's going to look like for you personally. So I can't give you, one size fits all on that one here, but there are a lot of ways of getting around that. Gosh, I'm trying to get to all these questions. Have you ever had a conflict of interest with a medical doctor or a conflict with an MD regarding a client you saw, patient you saw?
Oh, how much time we got? Yeah.
Eh, not much.
Yes. Because you have to remember, and I'll keep it tight, is that most of your medical doctor deals a little bit better. Most of them are not trained in naturopathic medicine. I've literally had MD say, "Hey, stop doing that," which is insane because I would never do that to another physician. Like, "Hey, here's some things to look at." Have that conversation with that. They're not going to extend you that same courtesy. You're going to have patients come back. And for me, I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I'll call you. I need to speak to Doctor. Can we talk about this? Like, and I'm not going to be, confrontational about it. I want to have that conversation. We do a peer-to-peer and talk about this. I've had those conversations, and sometimes I've had those conversations, and once you get done with that, like, okay, I understand why you're doing it. Let's go back to that. Some will not want to listen to you and talk to you, but there will be conflicts. Again, they're not trained in what you do. So when you say do A, B, C, and D, they're trained algorithm, do this, look at this, take this, medications based on what they're doing. We're trained differently, and you want to be able to have that conversation. Do not be afraid. And I think sometimes there's that intimidate. Don't ever be intimidated because you know what you're doing, what you're talking about. Have that conversation. You're going to educate them on why you're doing it. And not of that, you're going to show up with research articles. Here's the evidence and why I'm doing it. So trust what you know. You are brilliant. If you get to that program, man, our program, you're brilliant. You know what you're doing. Have those conversations, but there is going to be conflict. They're going to go against what you're saying, but you got to be able to have that. You got to do, again, it's not about your ego. It's what's best for the patient. And so make sure you're advocating for your patients if they have that.
Thank you. There's a sensitive question here, and you can choose to answer this or not. But there is somebody who has asked about race in education, and if you feel comfortable talking about this, just as a student of color,
Mhm.
how you found your community and so on in school.
Yeah, I think I've seen the question here. Uh, Community representation look like you. I will just it varies class to class, but I will tell you that from that breakdown, there's a lot more women of color than men of color in our programs. It's significantly. I think when I was there, it might have been like 10-1. But at the same time, I mean, it's part of the community, and you want to make sure you're in the community as a whole. But just know there are student organizations. I know at Sonoran, the name's changed a couple of times, but there is like a Black student organization. There's community organizations and all that. It depends on where you go. Just know the demographics of Phoenix are not that diverse. Just be real. And I think I never lived in Portland. I've been to Portland. I'm gonna say probably not. In many places but there is a great community at the school. There are programs at the school and just lean into that and just be part of those organizations. But again, it won't be just you. Just know that that's not how it works. And I know there's a lot of initiatives to increase diversity and inclusion in our schools and our programs too, and that's growing. Like from when I started to when I graduated, it was like an upward slope of diverse student body. So.
So it didn't, one question here, it didn't sound so much from your timeline, but did you know what you wanted to do after graduation? And, the practice that you have now, how did that evolve?
Oh, yeah, I no, I did not know I was gonna be doing this. I didn't know anything about what I'm doing when I graduated school. Again, I wanted to be an orthopedic injector. I just wanted to inject people's spines and do PRP and stem cell and prolotherapy. I was like, have needle, will travel. You do not have a problem I can't stick a needle into. That was me. And that's what I did. And, I'll keep it really brief. Is I had a great mentor who said something to me that was profound. It's about not It's the old saying, man, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the reason I say that is because you may learn that that may not be the thing that draws all the people to you. So yes, you want to still do that thing, but you may want to learn about other things. Now, I'm going to break that into a little mini story. COVID. I was just starting to build my regenerative medicine practice. It was starting to go well. COVID happens. Guess what? No one's out there leaving the house. No one's out there spraining their ankle and hurting their knee because people are less active. I suddenly did not have a practice. And so for me, but I always had an interest in foundational things. And I know it's so long, I'll make it quick, is because when it came to injections, I had people, it was two sets of people. If they were living healthy, their hormones were optimized. If they were eating a good diet, they would heal so quickly. You'd have people who they were just the train wrecks, man, standard American diet and inflamed and overweight. They just wouldn't get better. And I had an aha moment when I was sitting there in the throes of COVID, like, wait a minute, let me flip that switch and focus on optimizing health. Greatest decision ever. So this goes back in the presentation. I talked about that flexibility because what you think may not be what you're great at. And it's like it being in a band, like, oh, I thought I was going to be the drum guy, but my God, I'm so good at guitar, right? And just being open-minded to making that change. But no, for me, absolutely, I'm not doing what I thought I was going to be doing, but I love what I do. I can't see myself doing anything else.
Thank you. We probably have time for just another question or so.
Oh,
Uh, and I see that there are a bunch still coming in here.
I know.
Folks are very interested. Can you talk about the steps to create your own practice?
Hmm. Okay. Good one there. So many steps. One, okay, let's see how I can break this down. I don't think anyone's ever really asked me this. Be kind of cool. Practice that. Number one, think about what you want to do. Like if you have a practice, like what are you going to focus on? Think about like because again, you can do everything, but you can be like that whole inch deep, mile wide. To me, I was like, I want to be a few inches wide and a mile deep. I want to get good at certain things, the things I have passion for. So think about what the modalities, what's the focus of your practice? Are you going to do GI health, women's health, men's health? Are you going to do neurological stuff? Think about that. Second thing is okay, when you first start, it's going to be small. In most cases, it's going to probably be you and a medical assistant, or maybe a front desk person, or maybe you're doing all the things, right? Think about how much just understand like when you first start, you're probably going to start really small. Then it becomes like, okay, you have to find a place to practice. Do you want to just outright rent a space? Do you want to rent a space? Give yourself room to get out of it. Do not your first go around. Don't lock into like a 7 year lease because you're for a 800 square feet, you're going to outgrow it. Right. And so just make sure you have a little bit of room to grow. And then goes back to like, okay, I have a place. I know what I want to do. Now I have to find how people are going to find me, right? This becomes getting a good website. Get right. You need to invest in a decent website so people, when they look you up, hey, I got a good friend, it's Dr. Jones guy, I want to see him. They're going to look you up. You don't have a website. Think about if you want to go to a business and they don't have a website, you're probably not going to go. Like, I don't know, man. They don't seem legit. No website, right? And so now it becomes a matter, and then you got your space, you have your modality, you have your location, but then you also have to have some money to buy your supplies. You need to buy your needles and buy your alcohol pads and all that. So there's a lot of steps to it. It can get complicated. You need an accountant, you need an attorney. You don't have to get them all day one. Just know as you grow, I will say this, the more you grow, man, your expenses grow. Yeah, a lot of people, I got to pay a lot of people. It's like an attorney and an accountant and a bookkeeper and a web person, all that. But you don't need all that day one. Day one, you need a place, a computer, and you need this and you need this. You need a heart, a brain, a place to work, and just grow. Don't worry about building the Taj Mahal of practices day one. Start small and grow it because you will grow. Just give yourself the space to grow. But you don't have to get a 10,000 square foot practice day one and nobody even knows who you are. Start and grow.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense, Doc. I know you could also feel that one too, man. So I hope I was.
No, it's beautiful advice, and we actually had a career focused webinar where the presenter talked about the different stages of practice, and
Mhm.
you crawl, you walk, and then you run, and then you fly, and just making sure that you are taking time to be thoughtful at each one of those stages. But with that, we're going to close up for today. We are at time, and I just want to say immense gratitude for sharing your journey and all of this wisdom. And I really appreciate your being here today and all of you who came to listen to this talk today. And I wish you all the best of journeys in whatever it is that life does for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I hope to see some of you guys on the other side. I'll be waiting on you. I'll be waiting to teach you,
Beautiful.
beat you down. in a good way.
Thank
All
you.
right, see you guys. Thanks. Bye.